These crazy polychords that we hear as the camera pans into space have got to be like one of the most defining features of the Star Wars sound, at least for me. I grew up with these films, as so many of us did, and the soundtrack just had such a massive impact on me as a kid, still does, and a massive impact on music altogether, popular culture altogether. And there's so much going on in this soundtrack that is just like, what even is that? That I needed to actually do a video on it and take a look at a few of my favorite moments. So let's check it out. So in case you're not familiar with what polychords are, it's just what the name implies, multiple chords stacked on one another. Usually two triads or two seventh chords. In this case, it's triads. But this is not a slash chord. It's not like saying C over B flat or C over F or C over G or C over A or C over D or whatever. In this case, we have these two full triads that are stacked on one another. And the two triads are not meant to mesh well. They're meant to do this. And they really do this. They really do this. There's three of them. And each of them is just like bizarre and kind of mind-bending, right? Which I think is the idea. So for this first chord, we've got C sharp major in the bass, 1, 5, 3, like spread triad style. It's spread triads, what do you say? It just sounds fantastic. On the top though, E augmented. Augmented. Anytime augmented's involved, it's already bizarre. 1, 3, sharp 5, and together. So, you try to give this a regular name, it doesn't really work. It'd be like C sharp major 7, flat 10, sharp 9. Better to think of it as just two triads stacked. It's just bizarre. And they have this conflicting note in that we've got an E natural here and we've got an E sharp down here, aka F. You get this conflicting major and minor third in the same chord. Come on, what even is that? What's that? The second chord, we've got A major on the bottom and A minor on top. So both chords share the same root, A, but minor on top, major on bottom. So together, got the same problem going on here. Major third down here, minor third up here. The last chord's got an E augmented on the bottom now, and C major on top. Together. Again, get these conflicting notes inside. The C and the E are common to all three chords, right? And those already sound pretty wild, but it's only when you put in those inner tones from the bottom that you start to hear the conflicting thing that goes on. And, So the compositional takeaway for me here is polychords that are connected by common tones, the C and the E here, and then the rest is done just by ear, by feel. Okay, maybe John used some theory or something I'm unaware of. For me, I don't think that's really necessary for this. The idea is to be unsettling. The idea is to be strange and weird. I don't need to rely on theory to figure that out, even though I'm a theory nut. Still, you just play around, mixing and matching triads on top and the bottom until you find something, but the common tones in each chord allow some coherence, some connective framework the mind can comprehend and say, oh, somehow these belong together in some way, or at least they don't feel utterly random. There's some kind of flow to them. Damn. Every time I hear it. The main theme for this throne room theme, obviously, is just like one of the best themes of all time, probably. But this particular part with these walking chords coming to the big crescendo into the main theme is just so epic and so well done that I had to put it in here. So compared to the first example, I mean, this one is totally functional, super logical, very diatonic, very tonal. Everything just makes sense. We have these sort of walking chords in a chorale style underneath this sort of soaring, very beautiful melody. But the whole thing is very much understandable, relatively diatonic until the last portion. And then a few notes start to creep in there that are from outside the key. And they start to, what's going on? And it builds into this crescendo that sits on that pedal tone, right? On the 5. There's a 5 in the bass. We have a series of chords that sort of like build anticipation towards the resolution, which comes at the start of the main theme. Another interesting point here is that the tonic chord, the 1 chord, D flat in this case, only appears right at the beginning, at least in root position, and then not again until the next section where the main theme begins, right? That whole series of chords, it starts on the tonic and then never goes back to it. It just walks around the key, kind of hinting at it and coming away, hinting at it and coming away, hitting the 6 many times, hitting the 3, bunch of different stuff, but never coming back to 1, not in root position like that. And then finally, we get those chromatic notes that start to appear, which honestly to me sort of function like a drum fill, similar to how a drum fill functions, where you've got like a steady groove going, and then a couple of snares get out of place, and you say, a couple of toms appear, the whole groove starts to like dissolve, and then whoom, comes back together again on the 1, on the next downbeat. Same sort of thing happens here. You establish this logical, functional, diatonic movement that feels very understandable. The listener can anticipate and expect roughly what's going to happen. Nothing feels like, huge surprise. It feels like, yeah, I get this. And then a few notes start to come in and you think, wait, something's happening now. End up on that 5 in the bass with this series of chords, and the listener says, this is it. This is it. And then it is it. You get given it again, and the tonic chord appears, but it's the main theme now, and everybody cheers. The coloring that you see on the notes here is done according to scale degree, so that you can always track which degrees are being played in the key at any given time. This is the same as is done in my app Sonofield, but it also helps us to see when these chromatic tones start appearing because we see colors that we didn't see in the first 2/3 of the progression. The first non-diatonic chord here is a 5 of 2, that is, it's the 5 of the 2 chord, which in this case is a B flat 7. However, it actually has an E flat on top, and if you don't believe me, just go listen to the score. It is there. I mean, I did all these chords by ear, I should say. I didn't go look at the score. I realize the score exists, but I enjoy doing it by ear. So there might be some mistakes, but that's not a mistake. I checked it over and over again because I thought, why is that there? It's there. That's not something I would ever think to do. But there it is, and it certainly gives, a vibe to the chord because it's a flat 9 compared to the 3rd of B flat, right? 3rd of B flat's D, so we're getting this dissonance between the bass and the top note. But this resolves to the 2 chord, right? Very nicely. But it's got this woo when it comes in for the first time, and we see the coloring here on the chord chart. The very next chord also contains a new non-diatonic tone, chromatic tone, which is a B double flat in this case, aka A, which is part of a G flat minor major 7 first inversion chord with the B double flat in the bass, so that we get this descending half step motion into the A flat in the bass, over which we have the tonic chord. So it's a tonic chord in second inversion. So we have the 4 minor major 7 in first inversion into a 1 triad, major triad, in second inversion. This is a really typical move that has happened for centuries, although this particular voicing with the minor major 7 is really nice with the 3rd in the bass doing the half step down. This type of thing of 4 minor going to 1 happens in basically all genres, even modern genres. But this particular way of doing it isn't as common with modern music, and I gotta say, I just love it. Now, just as soon as we've arrived at this stability of the inverted tonic chord, it dissolves again, this time with a B double flat major 7, in third inversion, say it slow because it's ridiculous to say, B double flat, aka A major, 7, with 7 in the bass, right? So you have A major with its 7 in the bass, or B double flat with its 7 in the bass. The easy way to think of it is you have 5 of the key in the bass, like you're doing a 5 chord thing, but you play the major triad a half step higher. 5 in the bass, play a major triad a half step higher. Which then moves into the suspended dominant, traditional 5-7 sus, 5-9 sus, and then finally resolving into the regular dominant, 5 dominant, which then leads into the main theme that comes right after. Okay, in this final example, we have another sound that I feel is just so typical of the Star Wars vibe, which is where you have these parallel planing major chords. Planing means when you take a chord and you move it around exactly in parallel without conforming to the key, without changing anything. You just take that major triad and you move it around exactly as it is over top of a static droning pedal tone, bass note. In this case, the bass note is C, and the top chords move, I hear, tonally in the key of D flat. Like if you listen to this, to me that feels clearly resolved in the key of D flat. I'm hearing it as flat 3, 1, flat 3, 1, flat 5, 4, flat 5, 4, flat 3, 1. Nothing sounds odd to me about that. It feels natural. I mean, that all these chords come out of the sort of mixed mode technique, modal interchange, and it all works, but it's cool. I mean, it's a cool use where the melody is the top note, but every chord is a triad that's planing around. However, we have C in the bass, which, speaking tonally would be the 7th of the key of D flat. But here, I'm not really thinking it matters too much what this is. The point is that it makes the top part sound bizarre. And there'd be a lot of notes we could use for this, but here he's using C. And so, each one has this bizarre relationship with the bass. So it's hinting at the idea of the rebel theme of strength, of glory, of rightness, but it's got this, going on that just feels like, whoa, actually something's not right here. Then the chords move up a minor third from the key of D flat to the key of F flat, or we'll say the key of E, and harmonically E, and they play the same thing. So a G to E to a B flat. Again, this feels very tonal to me. It feels like it's in the key of E. It all makes sense, but the bass does not follow. It doesn't move up a minor third to keep the same set of relationships we just had. It just moves up a half step. So we were on C, now we're on C sharp, which means we get a new set of bizarre sounds. And actually at this point, the bass moves to a B flat for that final couple chords. We end up on this. So I really like this thing because it's a good example of something that you would never just do by random chance. I mean, this is something that you really have to have a conceptual idea, theoretical idea of planing major chords, a pedal tone in the bass in order to create this tension, using a theme that people are already familiar with, putting a different bass note under it. Like that to me feels very clearly conceptually based, but then the actual execution is done by ear, according to feel, and just experimenting to find out what is the best set of relationships? And then when moving up to the next key, again, reassessing, not just going mechanically and saying, you know what, let's put everything up a minor third. No, we put this up and this, only this much. And on the last chord, we don't even stick with this bass tone. I'm just gonna move it down to this because why? Because it sounds like that, you know? I like that. I like that it's conceptually driven at first, but guided by ear and by feeling. So interestingly, these 3 examples actually all come from the first film, episode 4, A New Hope. And so there's a ton of other material that I could look at in next episodes of this, but also if there's other soundtracks you think I should check out from movies or games or TV or whatever, just let me know in the comments. I'd be really down to do it because transcribing all this stuff by ear was a challenge and very fun. And from a compositional perspective, was very enlightening to do too. And so I'm really interested in kind of pursuing that further and sharing the results with you guys through videos like this. So I'm happy to hear your suggestions. So that's it for now. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a good rest of your day. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.